Are you thinking about buying a boat and you're not too sure how many hours are okay? Did you even know you should ask? On today's video, we're going to dive deep into boat engine hours, what that means, and what it means to you and your boating. Hi, I'm Sean Horsfall in Len's Cove Marina, and today in Len's Cove Lessons in Boatings, we're going to talk about engine boat hours, and we're going to talk about what's important and why you should know about them. We're going to talk about what are some of the downfalls of the engine hour measurement. We're going to talk about why ultra low hours aren't necessarily a good thing. We're going to talk about why a bit high hours aren't the end of the world. And lastly, the irony of hours on a boat in northern climate with our short seasons. Why should you know how many engine hours a boat has? It is an indication or measure of how much the boat has been used, and it will give you a reasonable expectation of future engine life and possible future repair and maintenance costs. Although it can vary wildly, one number to keep in mind is that 100 boat engine hours is roughly equivalent to about 4,000 kilometers of driving in a car. Keep in mind that not all boats have hour meters. It is often an optional gauge, and only on new engines with computer control systems do they record them internally. So you may find yourself in a situation where that information is just not available. Although that's not desirable, it's not a deal breaker, and you should make sure you can understand how much the boat has been used from the previous owner. Why engine hours may be deceiving or not the best measure. Just think about it from a car standpoint. Sometimes you see a car that has 100,000 kilometers on it and it's pristine, it's perfect, it's been cared for, babied, and it's had all highway miles. We had a shop truck here at the marina that had only 80,000 kilometers, and the thing basically fell apart because we used it for plowing and a lot of hard labor. So not every hour is used the same. Did they tube with it? Did they run it hard? Was it used for camps and for schools or for fishing charters? Were they towing other boats with it? So not every engine hour is equal, but it is a good baseline indicator, but you should look at the overall condition as well. Some people say that low hours are great, and in general, they're right. Lower engine hours mean that the engine wasn't run as much, and in theory, there is a future life expectancy of an engine, usually in the 2,000 engine hour range, and that means you have more life left when you buy a used boat. The problem with that is that if an engine has only been used very little, that means it's also sat a lot. So a 5-year-old boat with only 20 engine hours means that it has less than 1 year average use in 5 years. And you have to ask yourself, why is that? Did it break down often? Did they not use it and it sat? Did it sit for a couple or even 3 years without being used? Ultra low hours should be watched very carefully. Do you think high engine hours might be bad? You could be correct. However, remember that higher engine hours may be an indication of a great boat that was loved and enjoyed and worked perfectly for people. An average boating season in our area might be 30 to 50 hours. Actually, that might be a little on the high side. So if you take a boat engine with 500 hours and divide that out, and it comes to around 10 years, that's probably perfect. Thinking also that you can get about 2,000 engine hours out of an engine before a rebuild, so you've got lots of life left in that engine. Here are a couple hours paradoxes for you. We often have customers say they can't really justify buying a boat or getting into boating, or maybe upgrading their boat because of the really low hours they put on them. Have you ever seen how many hours the typical Florida boater puts on? The irony of it is that because of our short compressed season, we end up putting almost as many hours on in Eastern Ontario as someone in a southern climate does. And that's because we only have that period of time, so we push the boating in, whereas they have all year and they tend to only boat on certain perfect days. So when you look at a boat that has been in a southern climate versus one in the northern climate, and you look at one that's 10 years old each, they're often within about 10% of engine hours. The other paradox is that people often say, oh, 300 hours is a lot of hours on a boat engine. And if you multiplied that by every 100 being 4,000 kilometers, you wouldn't probably say that 24,000 kilometers on a car was high. So those are two things to think about when you're looking at engine hours. There's a huge value knowing what the engine hours are on a boat engine. Although it's not the holy grail, it's definitely something you're going to want to ask for from your marine dealer. Knowing not only knows if it makes it a good decision to buy, but it also gives you an indication of what's coming up in the future. And you can then consult resources to find out what a particular engine will need at certain hour intervals. So it's a great piece of information to have. There are lots of other things to consider when buying a boat. Condition, history, how it looks like people are taking care of it. See if you can get the maintenance and ownership records from the past owners. So thank you very much for joining us on today's video in Lens Cove Lessons on Boating. Hours are important, but really at the end of the day, you're trying to get out there and have fun. So stay safe, and I'll see you on the water.